All right. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? Thanks for joining us. Hi, I'm Linda Tong, and I am the CEO of Webflow. We are an agentic web marketing platform that is powering the digital experiences for brands like Sky UK, Dyson, Car Trawler. So I'm really excited to be here to tell you about building for the agentic web. And I want to tell you how we got started on this. Actually, sometime last year, I had a colleague ask me, "Have you Googled us lately?" And what she really meant was, have I looked us up on ChatGPT? Have I looked us up on Claude or Perplexity and saw what these answer engines are saying about our brand? And I hadn't. So I went and I looked. And to be honest, I was pretty disappointed. We've been taking Webflow through this transformation over the past 3 years, shifting into the agentic web marketing platform, and the results that I saw were really disappointing. They were old, they were stale, they were factually inaccurate, and I was pretty upset because we did this to ourselves. We hadn't properly built for the agentic web, which is why I'm here today. I want to tell you what that means so you don't have to go through the same experience I did. So 30 years ago, we all built the web for one audience, for people. Every single thing we did, how we designed, how we write, how we structure our sites, it was built for humans. It was built for human eyes, human clicks, human attention. And that made sense because the web was built by humans for humans. But now, there are two audiences we have to think about. There's something that's fundamental that has shifted. The second audience, these AI agents, they're reading your site and they're interpreting your brand. They're recommending you to your buyers, or maybe not recommending you. And this is all happening before a human might even experience you or hit your website or know your URL. And that's a problem because now there's this important thing because you're moving to a new channel of discovery. It's no longer just SEO. You now have to think about the second path of how AI is driving discovery of your business. Something that most marketers don't know is that over half of the traffic that's hitting your site right now isn't human. All right, these are bots. These are AI agents. These are LLMs. They're crawling your experience. They're answering some question that's been asked, and they're not coming to you. So at Webflow, we've seen over 125% increase in LLM traffic to websites on our platform alone in the past year. This is only accelerating. This is an incredibly important trend that you need to follow. And the thing is, that traffic, it behaves totally differently. It's not coming in and clicking on your CTAs. It's not filling out a form. It is reading your content. It's synthesizing it, and then it's creating an answer to users that may never come to your site. This is a second audience, and it's here right now. What's really important to understand is we're seeing a lot of change. I talk to a lot of CMOs every day, and they've told me that they've seen traffic drop off because clicks aren't happening anymore. So when people are doing searches on Google, they've seen over a 60% difference in how many searches result in a click, right? 60% of them are now ending without a click. That is quite terrifying, right? Referral traffic from Google has dropped 8% year over year. When you switch into the AI mode, right, so AI overviews by Google, that metric goes up to 93%. So 93 out of 100 searches are resulting in 0 clicks. That fundamentally shifts what your traffic funnel looks like. Instead of thinking about it as SEO versus AEO, you need to recognize that you now have two funnels. And before you get too terrified that all of your traffic has disappeared, something to note is that when you do get AI referral traffic, that traffic converts at over 2.5x the times of the traffic that you got before. So it's really important to understand it as two different channels. And so that's why we spend a lot of time talking about AEO. Not as a this or that, but you need to think about SEO for traffic and AEO for intent. Because AEO is a fundamentally new channel that you need to build for and think about and actually optimize for. And people aren't actually understanding how to do that. Because where SEO, being on the second page was a death wish, with AEO, there is no second page. You're either in the answer or you're not. So you need to figure out how bots can understand you, how LLMs can actually comprehend your brand and surface you accordingly. And here's the other thing. I think everyone here has used ChatGPT or any other LLM. And the thing is, our default response is to trust the answer that comes in. How many times do you go back and verify that the results that you're getting are right? Not as often as we'd like. And the reality is if the bot gets your brand wrong, that's what your buyer is seeing. And they're misinterpreting your brand completely too. And that becomes their new truth. So you have to think about that. And the other thing that's happening is we're seeing this trend where discovery is a brand new opportunity when it comes to AI search. So over 43% of users are actually discovering new brands via AI, which is a huge opportunity. And over 49% of users are actually changing the brands that they use based on recommendations from AI. So if you can properly think about AI, AEO as a path forward to drive discovery, you're in the money. But if you can't, and if you can't represent your brand properly, this is a big risk to your business. And now before you run away and decide that all you're going to focus on is SEO and AEO, the thing is that's just discovery. Building for the agentic web is what happens beyond discovery. You have to think about experience. And so I want to rewind a little bit. I want to talk about a really common experience that we all understand, navigation. I don't know how many people are visiting from out of town, but when I visit new cities, I love to go see some of the sites. And 2 decades ago, if I came to Paris, if I wanted to go see the Eiffel Tower, I would have gone on MapQuest. I know I'm dating myself, but I would have gone on MapQuest or Google Maps, and I would have printed out directions on how to get from here to the Eiffel Tower. And I would have had to follow those directions specifically, turn by turn. And if there was a road that was closed, or if there's an event in the way, I'd just be lost. I wouldn't have any other way to get there. But today, I can just pull out my phone, and I can open Google Maps, and I can get live navigation. If I decide to veer off track and go to a coffee shop, it'll automatically recalculate. If I want to avoid traffic, it'll live overlay traffic for me. Everything as I swerve and turn, it's reacting to me. That is a fundamentally different experience, and it's something we expect. But when I think about the web, for some reason, websites are still feeding us these static experiences, really similar to MapQuest in 2010. Every website is built as this static experience that when a user shows up, you don't act as if like you know who they are. You don't take any of the context of what they're doing. And we're just pushing them through this constant customer journey that was built for everyone and optimized for no one. And that's the problem with the web today. And so for our thesis of what the future is, it's the web is alive, okay? The website itself should be dynamic. It should be treated as a series of components and building blocks that are constantly transforming as you interact with them. That's what you have to think about, because you can't build a website, ship it, and call it a day. You have to think of it as a system that knows where is the visitor in their journey. It should update as they move through that journey, and more importantly, it should be recalculating every time they click, every time they do something. And this is a technical reality that is ready today. It is not a future state, it is a today's state. The first time a visitor who might come to Webflow's website from an AI recommendation that maybe they searched for an enterprise CMS, they're going to get a contextual experience that's going to give them more discovery on a CMS. For a user who comes to our website today that has maybe seen our pricing page 3 or 4 times, they're going to get an urgent, high-intent call to action. And then maybe an AI agent is coming to our site, and it just wants to crawl information and synthesize data. It's going to get Markdown. It's going to get structured data and FAQs, no extraneous content. These are 3 different experiences for 3 different audiences that are fundamentally different, all on one site, running simultaneously. That is a dynamic web experience, and that is what every experience should become. Every single session that happens becomes a signal. Every single conversion or a lack of conversion should actually feed into a feedback loop. And then more importantly, the site itself should be continuously improving and healing with every single interaction without having to have a human in the loop. That is building the living web. And a living website becomes a growth engine. That growth engine takes every interaction, it teaches it something, and it feeds it back. And then more importantly, every optimization that happens will compound it. But on top of that, if your website's alive, if it's actually transforming, and if it's doing all these things, you really need to make sure that it is yours. And what makes it yours is your brand OS. You need to make sure that your brand DNA is fed into your website, and that it's bringing that context that allows it to represent you, your voice, your content, your positioning, your stories. And that brand OS needs to be built directly into the system that actually instructs every agent on how to work and what to do and how to optimize. Without that context, you have a generic experience. With it, every agent, every optimization is personalized to you. It's your brand DNA through infinite expression. So, what should you do? I've seen some people nodding along. What should you do if you believe in the future of the agentic web? Well, first, You have to build for 2 audiences. You have to think about discovery. You have to think about your experience. But let me give you really tactical action items that you can do over the next series of the year. First, audit your AI presence. Go do that ChatGPT search I told you to do. Takes a couple of minutes. You could actually do it right now. Second, fix your content. The highest ROI you can get is actually creating structured content that's machine readable. Think about what questions should be answered and make sure they show up on your page. Don't bury them in a 2,000-word blog post. Third, change measurement. Right now with SEO, you're measuring traffic. That doesn't work anymore. You need to think about AI citations. You need to be thinking about AI revenue and how that's converting based off the kind of referral traffic you're getting. And then the structural changes. These are the hard ones, but they're the ones that make a difference. You need to think about how to define your brand OS. You need to codify this. This is your content, your voice, your positioning, your assets. Everything should be codified into a system that feeds your agents, that is actually continuously iterating and optimizing your website. And then the last, probably the most intimidating, you have to think about your tech stack. Does your tech stack have everything it needs to build for the agentic web? Does your CMS, is it readable? Is content accessible via API? Does personalization happen on the fly, or do you have to rebuild your whole site? Do you have agents that can run in closed-loop experiences to actually optimize and build with you? If you don't, you need to transform. And speaking of transform, I want to give you a little bit of urgency, because over 20 years ago, the people who recognized that search was important and SEO was important, they jumped on it early, and they got massive growth advantages. In 2010, the people who recognized a shift in form factor from web to mobile, or desktop to mobile, they got compounding growth based on building for mobile first. We are in this window of change. It lasts maybe 18 to 36 months. It'll probably be even more compressed right now. If you don't act right now, you may miss it. The people who do act right now will get asymmetric advantages in their ability to grow their business. So, the future of the web is alive. This is not a static medium anymore. It's dynamic, it's intelligent, and it's increasingly operating without a human in the loop. Companies that design for this, that think about this, they are going to win in this next chapter of how do you build in a digital world. And the ones who don't are going to be misrepresented on ChatGPT, and I hope that's not you. Thank you, everyone.